Well, hello there, fans and friends of the Make Do and Mend show. We've got a cracking episode in store. A trip down memory lane, all the way to my house on West Wallaby Street. So, do enjoy, and don't forget the cheese.
Hello listeners, welcome to a very special episode that I am absolutely fangirling over because I am in the Cartoon Museum in London to talk to two very amazing people about an amazing little game called Walkabout Mini Golf. And as you know, this series so far has explored many different themes around nostalgia, people escaping the modern world by living like it's the past, and the ways in which social media may actually be damaging our human connection. But what if a very modern problem needs a modern solution? Well, today I'm speaking to Katie, publishing and content advisor for the Mighty Coconut Studios, and Nick, otherwise known as Inner Princess on YouTube, that creates content around the amazing game Walkabout Mini Golf, including guides, tips and tricks, secrets, about the world of VR, our need for escapism, and how a simple game of mini golf has become a magical experience. Hello!
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing this in the most amazing setting, because, I mean, look at this. That is a huge bit of nostalgia for me because I actually had that when I was a kid, and honestly, I was so incredibly amazed at the announcement today, and I can't believe I wore my Shaun the Sheep bag.
You knew.
Because I'd love to start with, what are we here celebrating today? Please tell us.
Yeah, we're here to announce that Walkabout Mini Golf's new licensed course for 2024 is Wallace and Gromit. It'll be coming later in 2024, and you can expect the usual 18 easy and 18 hard mode holes, as well as some really fun contraptions that Wallace just had so much fun building with Gromit in his basement. So expect a lot of fun and a lot of classics from the films.
That's amazing. And tell me a little bit about the fact that you're working directly with Aardman on this, aren't you? Which I think is, I seriously can't believe that's what the announcement is. I so get why you invited me now. Because I was a bit like, okay, this sounds interesting. I was trying to squeeze answers out of you. And then when I saw it was Wallace and Gromit, I was so thrilled and so excited because that is so nostalgic for me and for so many people. I mean, it's a British icon for one, but it's very much what my content tends to be about, recreating that sense of home, that sense of comfort. So you're working with Aardman on this, aren't you?
We are, yes. It was actually very coincidental. They came to our event at South by Southwest a few years ago where we announced Meow Wolf, one of our licensed courses. Rob Goodchild, who was the commercial director at the time, tried it, stepped in and said, I'd like to talk, handed over his business card, and here we are, with Wallace and Gromit. It was literally as simple as that. Just tried it on for a few minutes and said, this is us. And it was just such a great collaboration. Really, really thrilled to be here.
That is absolutely amazing. Yeah, sorry, Nick, did you want to say anything about your excitement over this announcement? Just, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the faces in the room said it already, that
didn't they?
As soon as you connect it and you start thinking, what is Mighty Coconut and Aardman going to produce together, and what's this going to feel like in VR, which I'm sure we'll come to. Yeah. It's just the perfect partnership. Yeah. It's something that already, especially for British people, it's so nostalgic. It's so adorable. The characters and the design of it. So the idea that we can bring an extra level of immersion to that is very exciting.
You're absolutely right, and that's kind of what I want to speak about because in my podcast, as I've told you a little bit already, I'm exploring why people are escaping the modern world and the complications of the modern world by living like it's the past. But with VR, it's a very modern version of escapism. But a lot of the things that VR is creating are kind of worlds that feel inherently nostalgic, which is why this partnership is it's a glorious matrimony Gromit. And why do you think that mini golf, Walkabout Mini Golf, why do you think it's become so popular as a game? I don't mind who starts. Yeah, I mean, you make great content about it, so Nick, go for it.
Sure. So, I mean, my content is exclusively Walkabout, and that says something already about the appeal of mini golf. But one of our previous partners, Meow Wolf, I think summed it up brilliantly. Everybody seems to have encountered mini golf growing up. It's something that everyone everywhere has done, and it's got this kind of, she described it as this almost campy type fun, that it is just novelty is built into it, simplicity, and it's not overly competitive. It's designed to just have a good time. And so the idea that you can take that from a physical environment where it's often, in maybe a state of disrepair at a seaside or something like that, and put it into something more modern, as you say, cleaner, tidier, more accessible, you can put it on in your own home. It's another great combination, and it brings a new level to mini golf.
That's so true. Who hasn't experienced mini golf in their childhood? And I think a lot of people are kind of like wanting to return to something simpler. And I'm trying to explore why that is. I think there's a lot of reasons, but I think a lot of things about living today and living very much in the modern world is that things can be quite overwhelming. So I think people are searching for escapism. And either of you will probably be fine to answer this, but is VR about escapism? And if so, why do you think the need for escapism has grown, if you think it's grown?
I think with regards to talk about mini golf, which is its USP in my opinion, is that the mini golf is second. And I feel like it is such a great space to meet friends, hang out, have conversations that you can't have over the phone or, the people overseas. And that for me is such a heartwarming thing to see in VR. I feel like a lot of games don't have that in the sense that, you play a rhythm game or you play something that's very much singular, whereas Walkabout, we open that door and go, please come on in and have it as you'd like to. We recently had, I'm not sure if you saw, but we had a couple that met in Walkabout Mini Golf and got engaged recently. And we had an engagement party in Around the World in 80 Days. We did, yes, we gave them a space.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we didn't discuss getting married in Walkabout Mini Golf, but there was definitely a question for, that it's so nice, again, just to see that our game is the mini golf second, and people just form these relationships throughout all ages. And I'm so glad that we can be a part of that VR escapism, but also that VR inclusion. It's so nice to have that.
So I guess you guys would argue that VR can be healthy for human connection, not a hindrance, because there are some sort of studies out there, because VR is growing, isn't it? I am exploring vintage versus modern and people living like the past, but I've always said I don't reject modern technology. I've been a gamer my entire life, so this for me is brilliant, because this is bringing like two things that I love, that kind of beautiful, nostalgic, comforting vibe with modern gaming technology. So do you think it is healthy for human connection rather than a hindrance? Do you think VR is becoming something that spans beyond gamers and could be something for everyone? I don't know.
For me personally, I will say that it is. I will say that, like PC games, there may be pockets where you do get players that have a certain attitude that, they do have in other PC titles, but I feel like, again, with Walkabout Mini Golf and other spaces, it's just a different audience, and I feel like you really get players that are there for the game and there for the interaction, and it's just so nice to have that relationship with them. I will also say that, with the escapism point, you can travel to Venice, you can travel to Paris, you can travel wherever in VR, which you obviously can't really do.
That's so true.
IRL unless you pay. So it's really nice to have those spaces available to them and go, here's what we can provide, and feel free to explore them.
Yeah, you were saying something earlier about that, Nick, weren't you? About the brilliant thing about mini golf, for example, like Around the World in 80 Days is for anybody who might have a bit of social anxiety, or anybody who might be immobile, or anybody who doesn't have the budget to go to these. But you can put on a headset and be immersed into another world. And do you think that's a positive thing for people?
Yeah, and I think the fact that VR as well gives you sort of an avatar-like appearance. It's somewhere between meeting in real life and maybe a talk on the phone or a video call, which is quite restrictive. You can very easily share an experience together. These people that met were, I think one was from America, one was from the UK. They met across the pond, and they're not the only couple that have met. We've seen lots of stories of this. You can easily start to connect in a very low impact way. You don't have to worry too much about how you look, because you can use an avatar. We have people that play in wheelchairs, but suddenly you've got the ability to move around as freely as anybody else would be able to. So there's definitely an accessibility appeal to it. And then because there's certainly a lot of expression you can get from avatars, but it's still restricted, so you can still keep things hidden. It means that barrier to socializing is lowered slightly, and it just opens it up to a wider audience.
Yeah, and do you think the connection is maybe it's obviously not the same as if you went to a coffee bar with your friends in person, but is it as significant, do you think, a connection that's built? I mean, being a player of Walkabout Mini Golf in the world of VR yourself, do you feel that connection is as genuine as it would be if you met them in person?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'd actually say there are people that I've met playing in VR, and then I've met them in the real world at previous meetups, and it's maybe even more awkward in real life, because I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I look like, this is my hair today, this is what I'm wearing in my trousers. But in VR, you know, you've not only got, like I say, limited amounts of expression and of your avatar displays, but also because you're doing something, you're not just mingling. You can be out playing mini golf in the Gardens of Babylon or something like that. You can always just go and explore something else. So it kind of allows you to jump straight into the best kind of social interaction, which is finding the right place to be with the right people at the right time, which otherwise takes a lot of logistics to put together.
That's very true. It makes you know, communicating so much more accessible, because you don't have to think of the logistics, or if you have the capabilities to go and do it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's great. And what I want to say is, why Wallace and Gromit? There's a little bonus question, because with my content, that very, you know, that kind of quintessentially nostalgic British cup of tea, and you know, I mean, Wallace and Gromit's home, you know, I would probably say that me and my mum accidentally inspired our home on West Wallaby Street without even realising it, because my whole content started because of my house and the way that my house was furnished, and it grew from there. Because even if people might not all want to live like I live, for some reason they do want to see it, they do want to consume it, and they do want to be immersed in it. So I understand why Wallace and Gromit, because I adore the entire world and it makes me feel safe. Why Wallace and Gromit for Walkabout Mini Golf?
Good question. I wish senior art director Don Carson were here, because he's, you know, the brains behind this fantastic operation with regards to the concepts and design. But I think, you know, at least from my standpoint, they are exactly like us. They love, you know, Wallace loves his mechanics. He's very kooky. He's always tinkering in his basement on something fun, you know, especially the Gardens of Babylon, where we had such great, you know, mechanics, and just really led from there. I feel like he definitely has a lot of traits that we have in our personalities. I feel also, you know, again, having the animation background that Lucas Martel has, you know, working on Spies in Disguise, etc. You know, I feel like he has such a great eye and such a great understanding that it really was just a great meeting of minds, I think. And I'm just so glad that they just said, yes, VR, we're looking into that anyway, as you may have seen with their recent launches. But it's so nice for them just to go, we can see a course, and Wallace can definitely make his home here, which he did. So really thrilled.
That is brilliant. Shout out to Spies in Disguise and Pigeon Impossible. Pigeon Impossible being by Mighty Coconut Studios. Both of them centre around pigeons. I'm a pigeon keeper, and when I saw them getting that kind of representation, I loved it. And yeah, I just think they're absolutely brilliant. But yeah, everything that you said is it's so lovely to hear that you see some sort of similarities with Wallace, because yeah, he's a tinkerer, he's kind of a crazy inventive. I think everybody that I saw at the event today, you know, they were beautifully kooky, and like, you know what I mean? And like, there was me in my strawberry cardigan and my Shaun the Sheep bag, and I didn't feel out of place at all. And I kind of loved that. Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask is, because the blend of vintage and modern seems to be where people feel comfortable. They don't want to go ultra modern. They don't want to leave things behind. And I don't think we should leave things behind, because I think if you don't remember where you've come from, you're liable to repeat history in ways that aren't, you know, positive. So I think that blend of both seems to be what I think Walkabout Mini Golf is doing so beautifully, because you're offering people escapism in a very modern way. But when you put on the headset and you get there, it's not clinical and white marble and ultra modern and complicated and noisy. It's calm, it's serene, it's sensory, and it feels, maybe it feels a little bit like I've gone to an era gone by, or maybe it just feels like I've gone to another world entirely. So is embracing this kind of modern technology the way forward to enrich our lives? Do we, you know, would you say that it's a positive way forward for people to feel more connected with the world? Because I think people are feeling disconnected. I don't think people feel, you know, much of an individual anymore. I think we're all feeling a little bit lost because the world's getting bigger and we're just kind of feeling smaller. Is this a nice way to reroute ourselves in a very modern way?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I got into VR just shortly before lockdown kicked in the UK. So I just kind of fluked an incredible piece of technology to get through a period when all this connection, everything was cut off, and we were almost entirely social media to connect with one another, which didn't appeal to me a whole lot, for all the reasons that you've kind of alluded to. So then to have a piece of technology that can take you somewhere was a completely new thing to process at a really great time to be kind of engulfed in it. And you're right that the modern environments that it can present you with are curious and they're interesting, but they haven't got that same comfort that you kind of crave as just going to be somewhere that you remember a feeling from or something like that. And so it is, as you say, something that Walkabout Mini Golf captures very, very well, is capturing the entire feel of an environment. So there's a course that we have called Kyoto Valley, which is just stunningly beautiful. It's their twist on the windmill theme of mini golf. But it's up on these kind of high cliffs and high mountains. And I've been on a few hikes, and they're some of my fondest memories, some of the best views. And when you step on there, you have the same, very similar feelings to that height feel, to the feeling of conquered something, to have got up to the top of something and to look down on it and to see different perspectives of things, some from a smaller, closer perspective and then from further away. To be able to jump into that in an instant, rather than, as I say, with the logistics of arranging a whole holiday, a whole trip, a whole hike, prepping your knees for all that climbing, to just put on a headset and get kind of 90% of the way there. Yeah. What a fantastic thing that is. And there's nothing that rivals it. You can look at pictures on a flat screen, but it just doesn't connect. And as you said, with the kind of vintage stuff and the time gone by, you look at how much appeal there is to colorizing older photos, and suddenly we've got that extra layer of immersion because then we can see the color of it. But the ability to create an environment, something that we've all got nostalgia with, something like Wallace and Gromit that we've seen, and then you can actually be there. It's just, I can't describe how positive that is.
It is positive, and I hope people don't think, oh, she's a fraud. She says she's from, well, no, I don't say I'm from the 90s, but she says she loves the 1940s, and here she is saying how great all this modern, technology is in this gaming environment. But it really is, because even I've talked about it before, the VR, aside from Walkabout, it has things like the Anne Frank Museum, where you can go and immerse yourself in the world of Anne Frank. You can pick up her diary, for goodness sake, and hear her narrate her own story. And I wondered how that would do when I posted that on YouTube, if people would say it was disrespectful. Quite the opposite. I was actually surprised. So many people said how wonderful it was because of all the things you said about not being able to go to the museum themselves, about not having the budget, the mobility, but being able to relive history. Now, Wallace and Gromit isn't history of that sense, but it is in my history, it's in my nostalgia, it's in my childhood, to be able to experience it again, but in a way that I feel like I'm really there with the characters I grew up loving. I mean, I always say to be in touch with your inner child is a healthy way to be if you can bear to do it, and I think this is going to be absolutely fantastic, overly positive.
I think as well, especially with Jim Henson's Labyrinth, it's so nice for parents and grandparents to go to their family. Here's what I had growing up, because again, you can't see that on the television, as Nick said. So it's really nice just to go, here's my childhood, jump in with me, and to have that level of inclusion and connection with your family and friends.
I loved the Labyrinth level. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. My mum was like, oh my God, it was really cool.
So it's nice to continue this with Wallace and Gromit again for all us, millennials, just to go, here's what I grew up with, step in with me. And it's just so nice to have that level of connection as well of, here's my childhood, relived. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is, modern sometimes scares people off because they think it's going to be something totally out of their reach and something that they don't relate to at all, because it's all about having the latest version of something and like the latest iPhone, the latest whatever. But actually, that's not what you're doing at all. And if people do dare to embrace it, actually, it's going to feel a lot more familiar than you ever thought possible. And the last thing I just wanted to say, is there anything you wanted to kind of announce, anything we should be looking out for, any particular dates, or what's the next thing for us to keep our beady eyes on with the Wallace and Gromit journey?
So as we said earlier, it is coming 2024, so keep refreshing that meta page. But no, we're definitely looking forward to teasing. We're going to GDC very soon. We'll have, much more to share then as well. So a lot more coming for Walkabout Mini Golf. This is just the start of our 2024 already, as well as Ice Lair that we launched yesterday. So a lot more to come, and keep your eyes on your headsets for some updates. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll all have a grand day out.